What's up, guys? Welcome to Daily Dose of Reddit. This is your host, Zach, and today's subreddit is r/StoriesAboutKevin. This story is called, I Dated Kevin for 2 Years. Here's a story about our missing car. I met and quickly fell in love with Kevin when I was a freshman in college. We decided that things were getting serious and decided to move in together. All of this was a mistake, but I've learned quite a lot from the experience. I have tons of stories about Kevin, but today I shall tell you the tale of how our car got stolen. Kevin has somehow always had strokes of luck, which I think in hindsight is the only reason why he is in existence today. Because the boy ain't bright. He lucked out somehow and bought a 1987 Acura Legend with 50,000 miles on it for $1,500 in great condition. There is only one problem with this. Kevin is a horrible driver, to the point that where he ruined that car. One of his friends once told me, OP, if you let Kevin drive that car, it's going to end up being a $1,500 car. He's driven over curbs and destroyed tires. He's driven the wrong way in one-way traffic a few times, including rush hour. He's even smashed out the driver's side window in a fit of rage. Okay, that's concerning. Eventually, he would turn that poor car into a horseshoe by running a stop sign and getting it T-boned because he was crying. At the time that I was dating Kevin, we lived within walking distance of our university, on a semi-quiet street behind a Walgreens, in a tiny house that can only be described as a shack. The tiny house was behind an even more tiny apartment quadplex. 4 tiny apartments just big enough to be considered livable. I worked for the company martofwall.com as a call center operator, within what I would call walking distance, but others would not. If I walked to work, it was a 30-minute walk. Kevin did not work. In fact, he never kept a job longer than it took to get that first paycheck. After Kevin got the car, he'd drive me. He would never let me drive. There was one night where I was cooking and I needed a few last-minute things. Kevin volunteered to go to the Walgreens. Usually, he'd walk. It never took more than 5 minutes, but on this night, he decided that he would take the car for this 60-second drive. He comes back after some time, and the night proceeds as normal, or as normal as a night gets when you're dating Kevin. The next afternoon, I'm getting ready for my shift at ye old call center. As Kevin would be driving me to work, I took my time getting ready. You know how it is. Well, when we walked out the door, the parking spot where the Acura would be was surprisingly empty. This was after he smashed the window out the driver's side door, so I assumed that someone finally decided to make off with that damn thing. We looked all over for it. It was nowhere to be seen. We asked our neighbors in their tiny apartments. Nope, nada. I had to call into my job to explain why I was going to be late. You see, I think the car's been stolen, I told my manager. I doubt she believed a word I said. If you've ever worked for the Mart of Walls, even the .com side, you'd know that you're basically living on borrowed time when it comes to calling in for anything. So Kevin calls the cops and reports the car as missing. While we are waiting for the cops to arrive and I'm standing in the empty parking space in disbelief, a strange look comes over Kevin's face. Wait, he tells me. I think I know what happened to the car. You wait here. Kevin takes off down the street in a hurried walk. 5 minutes later, a brown Acura Legend with a busted out window comes flying down the street with a sheepish-looking Kevin in the driver's seat. Kevin had forgotten that he drove the car to Walgreens and left it there and had walked back to our house. That is something I totally would have done. Oh, that's so funny. This guy, he's definitely got some problems, but definitely some cute little charming stories there, but he's smashing windows out of anger. That's concerning. Alright, this story's called Living with a Kevin Kevin for 2 years. I recently found this community and am happy to hear I am not alone. I too knew a Kevin and in fact ended up living with him for 2 years in college. Long post alert! We were moving off campus and needed another person to split rent for a house. My friends knew him and said he was a good guy, but forgot to mention his Kevinness. Below are just a handful of things he did that made my eyes pop out of my head. First and foremost, Kevin's rent was late every single month. At first, I would talk to him about it every month. He told me it was late because his mom had to send him a check because he didn't have a bank account. In fact, after 6 months of this, we told him we weren't going to cover his late rent anymore. So we asked what we should tell the landlord. He just shrugged. I had met his mom and she seemed nice enough. After a year, I finally had to give her a call. It was late every month because Kevin had established the system to call her after rent was due and ask her to send the money, which was about the same for rent every month, and I gave 3 weeks notice on. Once I talked to her, it was largely resolved. One of my other roommates, who was in charge of community groceries and supplies, think toilet paper, also would cook dinners, which you could opt in or out on. He was always super clear on how much we owed and how much it was to opt in for dinner on different nights. Very cheap. After racking up a large debt and my roommate hounding Kevin for payment, I had to get involved and ask what was up. Kevin told us he thought that we paid for groceries and supplies using house money. I tried to get him to elaborate, and what he basically thought was that we had this fictional bank account where we had unlimited resources. To this day, I think he thought his rent of around $220 a month was just going in my bank account. Prior to moving in, we gave him the job of setting up the internet. His mom, of course, paid for it, and we paid him about $9 each a month, which I took off his rent since I was in charge of that. One month, Kevin was hounding me to give him $9 to give to his mom. I informed him that since he was late on rent, I would certainly not be giving him $9, which again, I already took off his rent each month. He kept getting more angry and I had to explain basic addition and subtraction to him. I was using a scrap of bread and a whole slice to make the point visually. And I crap you not, he said, "You want me to pay you in bread?" My other roommate overheard this whole conversation and freaked out. I eventually just paid him all 2 years coverage of internet at once, so it was no longer an issue. We lived in a not so great neighborhood in a very cold climate. On 5 different occasions in our first year living there, my roommates or I came home to our front door being just wide open. Not only was the house freezing and snow inside, but we would be worried our stuff was gone or someone was in the house. Thankfully, never was. When it first happened, Kevin told us he just forgot to shut and lock the door behind him. Fine, mistakes happen. But it kept happening, and every time we explained why it was a big deal. I actually saw Kevin do it once, and yes, he just walked out and didn't even look behind him. We finally told him if it happened a 6th time, we would charge him for more of the heating bill. He did stop doing this after getting yelled at. Last story I will share, Kevin was awful at cleaning and was crap at doing his share of chores. We had a rotating list, and whenever he cleaned the kitchen, he would vacuum the tile floor. Now, I never chose to fight this battle in the first 6 months of living there because there were bigger fish. My boyfriend, who also lived with us, finally saw him do it one day and decided to help him out and brought him a broom. Kevin insisted that it wouldn't work. After my boyfriend demonstrated, Kevin was absolutely amazed and began sweeping. Fast forward a month to the next time he cleaned. My boyfriend witnessed him walk up to the kitchen table and sweep the table with the broom we used on our nasty basement floor. All of us were in shock and told him to clean it with soap, and Kevin couldn't understand the big deal. He never really cleaned again after that. All in all, he was a nice enough guy with a big heart, but he was an absolute Kevin. After I graduated, I have no idea what happened to the kid, but I heard he finally graduated somehow, although when I was there, he never declared a major. So he must have survived, but man, that was a long 2 years. Oh my gosh. It seems like having a roommate like that would just be a liability at that point. Eventually, he's gonna end up making you lose money on that whole roommate deal. But I'm glad everyone got out okay. Alright, this story's called Kevina Apparently Doesn't Understand the Meaning of the Word Juice. I am a full-time carer for my disabled mother. We have other cares that come in to help with things like showering and also to give me a bit of a break at times. And one of those cares is an absolute Kevina. There have been multiple instances of her flying her Kevina flag loud and proud. And we have stuck signs with basic instructions up all over the house to try and combat this. But what she did today still has me baffled. So part of my mom's disability means she has trouble swallowing. Because of this, all her fluids need to be thickened. We have thickener we can add to any fluids, but also keep some pre-thickened drinks in the fridge for convenience. Right before Kevina was due to leave, my mom asked if she could make her a drink before she left. Kevina has stuffed up making drinks in the past, not thickening them enough, etc. So my mom just says, put 2 of the already thickened juices into a cup and stir them together. That way you don't have to add anything. So off Kevina goes and returns a minute later saying, here you go. I mixed pineapple and strawberry juice. She leaves and me and my mom look at each other and I say, we don't have any strawberry juice. But she brushes it off, suggesting maybe she meant the mixed berry juice, or maybe she used one of the strawberry purees from the cupboard, because that's something she would do. So thinking it's harmless, my mom takes a big sip and proceeds to start choking and dry heaving, nearly vomiting all over herself. Very dangerous for her. She's been in hospital for aspiration pneumonia more than once. After a few minutes of backpatting until she can actually breathe again, and then cleaning her up, I take the cup and open it to find that it is full of pineapple juice mixed with curdled strawberry milk. Yes, Kevina mixed pineapple juice with strawberry milk, somehow unable to tell the difference between strawberry milk and strawberry juice, and not realizing the effect that the very acidic pineapple juice could have on milk, even as she was stirring them together. My mom suggested maybe she needs more training as a carer. I suggested maybe she needs more training as a frickin' human being. That's concerning. Who hires people like that? I'm not talking about OP and family there. I'm talking about who they're hiring them from. What the flippity-doo-dah? Alright, this story's called I Actually Got My Money Back from a Kevin. I have this friend, Kevin, and known him since we were in diapers. We are 53 now. He always had grandiose dreams that never worked out for some reason or another. Some gems taken from his life pages. 1. He got scammed by the Nigerian Prince emails around 2010. The scam was well known by then, but he paid money and came to me to tell me he was going to be extremely rich. Police couldn't help him at the end anyway. 2. He bought some agricultural land without seeing it, based on glossy brochures and a nice salesman pitch. That's something I do. It turned out to be on a slope of a rocky hill. As far as I know, he's still holding on to it, believing that the area is going to be hot soon. I mean, eventually. 3. He trusted his equally financial train wreck younger brother, and I ended up hosting his brother for a short time when they needed it. His brother stole from me, and Kevin simply refused to believe it. He insisted that it was an honest mistake and paid me back. Aw, what a guy. 4. I got him a job with a sister concern of where I work. That company was going under some reconstruction, and my Kevin thought he's a big man there. He was one of the lowest in the ladder, in fact. That company did some weird things. things, like getting some nominal directors for balancing books, which wasn't exactly illegal, but you know the picture. Kevin should have kept his big mouth shut and found a way out, but no! His exaggerated sense of self-importance soon got him fired. That company is going strong, by the way. 5. He believes whatever rubbish his beautiful 20-year-old girl tells him about being cool. They call each other bro, and he let her get a collarbone tattoo. This is not the USA, but a Southeast Asian conservative country. Oh boy. And sold his apartment in order to afford a car for her. He dreams of sending her abroad to study. He doesn't have money to afford the tickets though. He moved towns when his daughter eloped at 15 and had to be brought back from the brink of catastrophe. Kids could be sold into prostitution easily there, and police wouldn't do crap, I'm assuming. He blamed the conservative attitudes of everyone for his daughter's deeds. It's great he stood by her, of course, but still. I mean, honestly, that's an argument that could be made. You know, when you instill these societal pressures on someone who doesn't necessarily want to go along with them, you have a chance for that person, a big chance for that person to, you know, act in a crazy way, and in this case, potentially dangerous, incredibly dangerous, and very scary. So, even if people are wackos around you, just be safe. There are, you know, safer ways to demonstrate independence. 6. He got into the fringes of the movie-making industry. It's big here, and that was another massive story by itself. The highlight was that he and his friends were shown a $1 million USA note that was being sold off by a distressed investor. He called me to find out if such a note really existed. Even then, he went ahead and paid money as his share to buy that note, along with a group of Kevins. It didn't end well. 7. 2 years back, he called one day and asked me to send $1,000, or the equivalent in their currency, in an hour. He begged and begged, and I finally relented the next week. Kevin never thought of paying me back, apparently. I said, I don't need it right away, so it's okay. He has zero malice, believe me. He's just clueless. I told him to return the money last week, finally. He did it in a couple of days. I was surprised because I kind of expected more reasons why he shouldn't return it now. There's the story of my Kevin. This guy doesn't seem like a bad guy, just needs education of many kinds. And also, like, it's so baller that he's, you know, supporting his daughter still. Just, they both need to be more aware. Man, it's just hard to remember sometimes how crazy the stakes can be. Like, most people, their daughter at 15 runs off to get eloped. You know, that's most people would not be okay with that. In fact, most people would be very upset at that. And I guarantee you that Kevin here was probably really upset with his daughter. Alright, this story's called Roommate Kavina and US Geography. 2 short geography-related stories involving roommate Kavina. As I mentioned in past stories, my roommate Kavina was dating a long-distance truck driver. He once took her on one of his trips to the southern US. We were in Canada. Upon returning, Kevin just said the biggest surprise of the trip was seeing that Texas is not just a desert. Yeah, it is. It depends on what kind of desert we're talking about. If you're talking about a desert in the sense that it's all really dry and, you know, just sand and cacti, no. But if you're talking about a land devoid of any sense, then you're in the right place. And guys, I'm allowed to make that joke. I'm from Texas. And also, it's still the best state out of all other states, so there's no questioning that part. Another time, Kavina said her dad wanted to take her to the States for a day trip by car. She was excited and hoping they would see the Grand Canyon. Once again, we're in Canada. Honestly though, it's okay. Not everyone knows the geography of another country very well. See, I guarantee you that a majority of Americans would probably just assume that Mexico is just one giant desert. Mexico has a vast variety of different geographies, I guess, if that makes any sense, and is incredibly beautiful, not just a bunch of cacti, and just not another Texas, basically, or what she imagines Texas to be. And I know nothing of Canada, okay? Nothing. I don't know where anything is, don't even know what would be anywhere, because I know nothing about Canada. All I know is it's got half of Niagara Falls.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to never miss an episode.